Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Angie and today I am going to be discussing the Moscow, Idaho 4 college students' murders and some of the criticisms of the investigation and how difficult it is to try and see both viewpoints. So we've got the police on one end trying to do their jobs and trying to find the killer, find enough evidence to prosecute the killer. And then you've got, the community, the families, all of us who are interested in the case wanting information. I do believe that we have expectations that aren't being met. Now, is that because the police are dropping the ball, or is it because our expectations are just, too high? Do I think that there were some mishaps along the way? In my opinion, yeah, there were, but I do think that there's maybe some other factors at play here. It doesn't help every time something happens because then it just kind of shakes the confidence that the people have in the police. So let's start with day one, the 13th of November. So the 911 call came out at about 11, I think 58 it was, in the morning. And at 2 p.m. that afternoon, there was a vandal alert that went out notifying the community of the murders. And within an hour, the alert was lifted and a message was sent that there is no imminent threat to the community. My question is, was it the police that made this decision on their own, or was pressure being applied from the town of Moscow to downplay what's going on? The Moscow economy really relies very heavily on the college. So the very next day, on the 14th, the mayor told a news outlet that the slayings were a crime of passion. And then he ended up having to backtrack that and make another statement to Fox News Digital, saying that at this time, it's unclear what the motive was, and it hasn't been narrowed down yet. Then on Wednesday, the 16th, there was a press conference where the police chief, what is his name? James Fry, said that we cannot say that there is no threat to the community, and they advised that everyone please stay vigilant. So basically that means that a killer was literally in Moscow that Sunday, the 13th. Granted, who knows if they're still in Moscow, but the decision was made to lift that vandal alert and reassure everybody there is no imminent threat to the community, even though there was no suspect in custody. So right out of the gate, things aren't really looking very good. The Moscow police have spoken in a few different press conferences, and they really aren't saying too much, which is probably a good thing, but they are really sticking to the idea that this was an isolated, targeted attack, even though there is no suspect in custody. The police also are saying that due to evidence at the crime scene, there is no broader risk, but they don't go into any detail as to why they believe that. I can only speculate that I think they're still trying to run with the narrative that they want everybody to be vigilant, but they also don't want to create panic. And then on November 21st, it was reported that the police were now expanding the crime scene to include a wooded area as well as a parking lot close to the house. Now, this one I really don't understand. This house is problematic because on the back side of the house, there's, their little yard area, patio, and then there's kind of this little slope, and it's wooded. And then up above that is more parking. So the wooded area, somebody could quite easily be sitting there undetected. And from that vantage point, they can see, because they have a view of the backside of the house, where the second floor is the sliding doors, and you can see into the second floor. On the third floor, there's a balcony, and then there's the two girls' bedroom windows, which you could see into their bedrooms. Another thing is that the parking lot, then, the killer could have parked his car up there and then, taken off from there. Or if he was on foot, possibly, that was the direction he went through. I would think that after killing 4 people, the killer may be dripping blood. I know a lot of people are questioning about a blood trail. There's no talk of one. And yes, could he have been really, really good about planning this and did something to avoid actually creating a blood trail? Yes. But evidence could be, in that area. It could be, if he was watching that house, maybe he left evidence while he was sitting there. If he did go through that parking lot, there could be possibly evidence. Unfortunately, we're talking a college town, a busy college town, and within hours, everything starts becoming contaminated. So if the crime happened between 3 and 4 in the morning, the public wasn't made aware of it until that vandal alert went out at 2 p.m. In the afternoon. So as you can imagine, that area, the parking lot, everything, it could definitely have already been contaminated before the public was made aware of it. Much less 8 days later when they decided to expand that perimeter. I was listening to Dale Carson, and he's he was a police officer, an ex-FBI agent, and now he is a criminal defense attorney. But he had outlined what the protocol is for police to follow when they are called to, to a scene like this. And first and foremost is make sure that everything's safe, that the killer is still not there. The second thing is to render aid to the victims if they're still alive. And the third thing is to establish the perimeter to as large as you can control. And by doing that, you are protecting any evidence that you may find in that area. Not only is it important to use whatever evidence you may find to help, solve the case, find the killer, but also to be able to convict that killer. So I have a perfect example that is actually in this investigation. Chris McDonough, I think is how you pronounce his name. He is a retired investigator. Him and his wife decided to visit the crime scene on Thanksgiving, which was 11 days after the murders. And they found a glove that was right in the perimeter by the trash cans. And this glove had snow on it. So he called over, the police officer that was there and pointed it out to him. And the police officer was like, oh, wow, Now, was that glove in the original perimeter, or was it in the area when they extended it? I honestly don't think it really matters at this point, because either way, at this point, it could be contaminated. Because let's say they went and they processed the glove and they found DNA and it was a hit, or, they were able to match it to somebody. That's great. I mean, that is great. But you better find some other piece of evidence tying them to that crime scene, because this glove is garbage. So not only does it make the police look bad because they've been combing this area for 11 days and never saw this glove, but that attorney can definitely come up with plenty of innocent reasons why their client could have their DNA on that glove. Let's move on to the press conference that was on November 23rd. Now here, they appeared to clear, quite a few people right away. And this did, rub a lot of people the wrong way. But I'm kind of wondering if it was a little bit of a play on words. So Roger Lanier, the police captain, said they do not believe that these individuals were involved. And he listed the white hoodie guy who was at the food truck, and I will, go into more detail with that in future videos. But the white hoodie guy, the roommates, Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, any of the people involved in that 911 call that next day, as well as whoever drove Maddie and Kaylee home that night. So here I can kind of understand why they are doing that. They really need to focus on the leads that they are receiving. And even if they are suspicious of any of these people or anyone, what good is it to tell the public? I mean, that's showing your cards. And it's bad enough, and trust me, I am guilty 100% of this, but we all love to speculate. And if we're not provided enough information, it's amazing how with cases like this, those gaps start being filled in with rumors and things that probably aren't even true. Imagine having a ton of work that you have to get done, and you really need to focus on it. So the best, environment is, a quiet place where there are no distractions. I think that's why, they're trying to create that space for themselves. But unfortunately, it's human nature to want to know what's going on. And so they do have so much work to do. And then on top of that, they're having to deal with the public pushing for, more answers. They're dealing with people creating fake narratives, leaking information, inserting themselves into the case. And so that's just creating a lot more work for them to have to deal with. In my opinion, I think they say that, that they're thinking that these people are not involved, even if they are suspicious. Because if the killer, hears that, they might become a little bit more comfortable. And they are watching them. And this gives them then time to surveil them, to collect DNA. The perpetrator may not have their DNA in the database. So they actually have to collect it from their trash or whatever they do. So in order to successfully prosecute somebody, the police have to make sure that they have enough evidence to convict them. And they only get one shot at it. When they made this statement, all of the DNA hadn't even been collected from the crime scene yet, much less being processed and results coming back. So I think that if they aren't sharing everything, it is at the benefit of the victims and gathering all the evidence that they need to not only catch the killer, but convict them. For me personally, I know I'm very, very impatient. And I think we all are used to watching a program that's maybe 1 or 2 hours where, it's the whole crime. You hear what's going on, and at the end, you know who the killer is. You know what the motive is. You know everything. And it's that instant gratification. Well, investigations don't work like that. And now that we've got, social media and a very large community of true crime enthusiasts, we hear about the case like very, very quickly, like immediately, that this happened or that happened. And so everybody's got their attention on it. And you kind of have to remember and think that, a lot of these investigations can take years, decades. Some aren't ever solved. So we really do have to be patient. Another thing that was a little bit confusing was how the police and the prosecutor were not on the same page as far as defining this as a targeted attack. From the beginning, the police were calling it a targeted attack. But then when the prosecutor was interviewed, he said it wasn't. So then they had to go back and backtrack, and the police then had to try to scramble to get all of this straightened out, and saying that there was some sort of internal miscommunication. So that really didn't help either. Now, another thing that might be going on is maybe how people interpret what's considered targeted and what's considered random. Now, when the mayor had used the term crime of passion, that is a targeted attack. And let's say somebody wanted to just kill that person, and then once they killed them, nobody else was, in danger. I think that's what they were trying to say. In this case, if there was 1 or 2 people targeted, then that means the others were just collateral damage. They were at the wrong place at the wrong time, and maybe if they weren't there, they wouldn't have been killed because they weren't the targets. And again, I think that, it's the town. They know they need to get seats into that college, and they don't want any more attention to this because people aren't going to want to go to school there. So by saying that it was targeted, by saying this was an isolated issue and that the community as a whole is safe, it's just a tactic to try to keep everybody calm. So yes, there might be the case that the mayor is trying to describe. crime of passion. Maybe it was, two people that were involved and, and they knew each other. There was a relationship there. So there are those situations, but there's also targeted attacks where they could be perfect strangers. Let's take Ted Bundy, for instance. Now, he had a type. Most of his victims were all very similar in looks, in age, and in race. And so he didn't know these women, but he would see a woman who fit his type, and then she became his target. The thing about him and other serial killers is that, okay, once they kill their target, they go out and find another target. So you can see how until they find a suspect, nobody's safe. Now, another thing that we are also seeing is Kaylee's family and how they have expressed their disappointment in the way things are being run. They aren't getting, any information, and you can really see, they're frustrated, and my heart breaks for them. I mean, I can't even imagine what they're going through. So you see, especially, Kaylee's father, lashing out a little bit, saying the police are cowards. He has been dropping some details, and I know he's hurting, and I think that maybe, he's wanting to avoid having to deal with the grief, that process. And by keeping busy and keeping involved, maybe that's helping keep him going. One thing that we did learn because of Kaylee's dad is that Kaylee and Maddie were in the same room, in the same bed when they were killed. And another thing, because I think he paid for the autopsy report or whatever, so he got the information on Kaylee's wounds, and he is saying that Kaylee's wounds were far greater than the others. Now, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if he could actually pay to see the other autopsy results. So I don't know. But what he's saying is that Kaylee suffered from far greater wounds. That tells us, it doesn't tell us anything because we don't know, but it's very easy to speculate that then Kaylee was the target. And one thing to note is that Kaylee actually didn't live in that house anymore. She was graduating. She got a job in Texas. And so she was actually planning to move out there, I think in like February. But what she did was she did buy a Range Rover. And so she was so excited to show Maddie. So that's why she was actually, there. And if Kaylee was the target, then the killer knew she was there that night. So please check out my next video where I will be discussing why this town and the house are problematic. So I hope you have a great day.